Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Moving Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, actor, coach, casting professional, John Ruby. I got through it, Corbin.
Yeah, you eventually got there.
This is my co-host. Hello.
Corbin Coyola.
Oh, wow. Are you doing what I just did? I've never changed up the intro like that, so give me a little
hard pivot.
Give me a little room here. All right. I tried something new. It didn't go well. That's all right. It's not about perfection here, Corbin.
Yeah, no,
it's about
not
trying.
at all.
All right.
Don't I know
It's really not. Don't we know it? It's definitely not about perfection here. Just the fact that I showed up on a Friday morning.
I'm just happy you're here.
I'm just happy you're here, buddy. So I want to discuss, Corbin, beverage of choice. You are on a tropical island and you've got, a waiter or waitress bringing you your drink. What and it doesn't have to be alcoholic. I know people think beverage could be alcoholic because mine's not going to be, I don't think. Just a little teaser there. So Corbin, what's your beverage of choice?
Beverage of choice. I don't really drink coffee or tea or anything, so I'll go alcohol first.
Yeah, he will.
I always I'm a big drinker. You said tropical island with through me, but generally speaking,
well, just say it. You could be on the top of a building.
I'm on the top of a building in the tropics. Boulevardier is probably my favorite drink, which is basically like a Negroni, which if maybe you're familiar with, it's Campari, vermouth, and bourbon. It's very simple and it's just bitter and good, and it's very easy, and you kind of sound a little ridiculous when you order it when you're like, can I get a Boulevardier? But it's great. I love it.
Did you order one of those in Chicago when we were with Gloria?
I did.
Like you did.
Yeah.
You did.
It's like a red drink. Yeah,
because I had to lean a little closer. I was like, excuse me, this sounds cool.
Corbin?
I like this.
It sounds like way cooler than it actually is. It's just like 3 equal parts ingredients, and it's good. But non-alcoholic, I'm a big LaCroix person. I got a heavy addiction to LaCroix. I'm deep in it. I got our carbonator for my own bubbly water. I got LaCroix still stacked. It's a problem. I should probably look into it, but that's for future, Corbin. What about you?
First of all, I'm anti-bubbly, man. I mean, I was in Europe, all the water's bubbly. I'm not a fan.
I used to not be. I don't know what changed.
I don't like carbonated soda. I don't like any of that. I like my beverage that I can just like chug. Can't chug bubbly.
Or turmeric.
My favorite. I just need a lot of turmeric. I love beverages. I really want to write a book of beverages for your health.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which is just like, it would just be like how to pace your day with different beverages. But no, I mean, for me to start my day off, I brew my own cold brew. I'm a huge fan of that. And then what I like to do is, because I'm like not doing a lot of sugar right now, I get this Vega protein powder. It's a salted caramel, and I put that in there, which gives it some flavor, right? So I like the sweet, but I don't want all the sugar. I'll put a little like almond milk or oat milk in there, and then here's where it gets crazy, Corbin. I add a little like coconut oil powder.
Okay.
All right. So that's like, that gives it a little texture. And then getting crazier, lion's mane, buddy. Lion's mane. Wow. There's a little hair on your chest. Yeah, that's a mushroom. Add a little bit of that, not too much. Can you taste
it? Is it like kind of like umami flavor, or what's going on there?
You can't even taste that. I don't even know what is in there. It's doing something good for me.
Something good for you.
And then this is the ultimate. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. And I even practiced. Ashwagandha. I said it wrong, but if you look that up, that stuff is really.
I don't even know how to begin to look that up. I don't even know the first letter.
I completely mispronounced it.
What is it? Is it like a root or something?
It's exactly. It's like a root that you put in there that has health benefits. So I throw all that in there, and my wife makes fun of me with all these powders and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
I love starting my day with that. That is the John Ruby cold brew special.
Wow, that sounds good though. I mean, you get a lot of stuff right away, first thing in the morning. That's a good move. Yeah,
definitely. So I know it's a complicated beverage, not as cool as a Boulevardier, but it's up there. I want to pivot now to our guest, who I'm super excited about. Someone I've known a long, long time. This guy's a really great guy. He's a session director and a musician. Carl Raether. Carl, welcome to the show, bud. How you doing?
Morning.
Hi, good morning.
Beverage of choice. Any thoughts on that?
Man, I mean, yours sounds pretty good. When I'm in town next week, I'm coming over. Otherwise, I mean, God, local. I want to know like what the locals have. Something that is like a local thing. That's more interesting to me. You know, I kind of don't have like a preference, I guess. If I'm going to wherever, some beautiful tropical island halfway across the Pacific, I want to know, like, what do you guys like to drink in the morning? What's the thing? I want to try that.
Yeah, when I used to go to bars and stuff, I would be like, make me what's your favorite drink? I was always curious what like the bartender's favorite drink was, like whether that's the easiest drink for them for the night, you know, or it could be what they wish they were drinking. Kind of similar. I like that. Like getting a little cultural.
When I'm in Europe, if I'm somewhere in like Bavaria or Eastern Germany or Czechoslovakia, it's like, what's your local beer? Like, yes, you fill the backstage fridge with Stella, but like, what's brewed like within like 5 hours of here?
Yeah,
I want to try that.
When I lived in Munich, Carl, it just made me think of the beer there is really great. And then, God, of course, I'm blanking on the name of it, but there's a beer we discovered, like as the other people I was there with, that's brewed by monks. That's like 14% alcohol, so it's like higher. Like these monks brew this really strong alcohol. I'll have to look up what it is. But so then we discovered that, and it was like hard to find, and so then that was always like the treasure hunt, like the truffle pigs, like looking for this like monk beer and see if we could find it, which was always fun. And then trying to find it in the States, because there's a couple like you can find it really like sporadically. But that was kind of something that I had never heard of. And then when we were there, Carl, we kind of found it, or someone told us about it, and that was a really cool.
This is weird. Is the logo like a person, like a monk with like a blue flag on there, like on the bottom? Does that sound familiar? Because there was a beer in San Francisco that I used to get that was like really highly rated and was very good. I want to say it was like brewed by monks.
It could be. I mean, and I think it's not uncommon for monks to brew beer for some reason, but it could be. I'm trying to think of like I said, it's been a while, but
Crazy.
We'll have to look that up, Corbin, and give an update. But yeah, that could be it, man. If it was, yeah. Weird. So, well, cool. Well, that's a good. I like that tip, Carl. Actually, that's a really great. What are the locals drinking? Let's try that. Try something new, and then if you don't like it, just get what you like. But you can try it,
change it.
It's win-win.
Win-win. So, Carl, I want to go back. I met you in the casting world, and I'm just curious about your introduction. How did you get your start in casting?
I fell into it, actually. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea that was even like an industry or a thing. I was playing in a band with this actor, and he had this guitar player that would come in to rehearsals, and the guitar player was always late for rehearsal, and he'd come in and like just be talking about like, I was in the studio, I had a session today. I'm like, who the heck is this guy? and turned out it was Rob Heskett. Mm-hmm. And what he meant by studios and sessions was casting. So we finished up this run of shows that we were both doing with this actor, and Rob and I kind of made friends and hit it off, and we were getting lunch one day sometime after all we finished up those commitments. And he was just kind of looking at me like, you kind of look like you're trying to figure out your next move. I was like, yeah, I need a job. And I was like, what do you do? He goes, oh, I work in casting. What's that? He goes, well, let me ask around, and if it's cool for you to come down, why don't you come down and shadow me, see if it's something that you might be interested in. So I went down to the Village. Ava Shevett's place.
Ava Shevett's, yeah.
Yeah. And,
used to be above a Hooters back in the day. Not that I would remember that, but that's
my time. I know
that's before your time.
Third location or something now.
Okay. Yep.
I was at I think the second.
Okay.
And I shadowed Rob, and then he was like, okay, here, you run the camera, I'll run the computer. And then, kind of got comfortable doing that because I was always a still photography guy. I was like, I don't know how to use a video camera. And then he was like, all right, well, here, now you run the computer. These are the keyboard shortcuts, and I'll run the camera. And, I shadowed him a whole bunch over there, learned on Casting Frontier. And then, boom, got myself a job.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. And I've known Rob, I've gone in for Rob and, worked with Rob. It's such a great guy. That's cool that he was, I find so many people, they obviously through someone else is like, hey, they got into the casting world. With that, Carl, I'm curious, just a little side note here, not an actor, but most session directors that are running, especially like commercial casting directors, are actors. How come the acting bug never bit, or you didn't have interest, or did you have interest? Like, I'm just curious about that, with being around it so much.
I did have a little bit.
Okay.
I remember when Sean was offering free spots in his class years ago.
Yeah.
Directors. I went to one, and then after that, I was too busy to keep going. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting. And I was curious enough to maybe I'll try this. I'm around it so much. Why not?
Yeah.
I had put myself on tape a couple of times, or, Ava loved to call me in for musician stuff all the time. She was always trying to throw me a bone that way, which I really appreciate. Never worked out, but I appreciate that she kept calling me in, and I always tried to show up for her in that regard.
Yeah. Love Ava.
I did get booked on one commercial. It was the role of a bass player, which was
weird.
Which is what Carl is. Yeah.
I had no dialogue. All I had to do was just stand there and play the bass. And it was shot. They actually filmed it at Conway Studios in Hollywood, just off Melrose. Conway is like one of the big old Hollywood recording studios. Like Guns N' Roses did Use Your Illusions 1 and 2 there, like back in the day.
Nice.
We were in like the big A room. It was beautiful. And it was a cigarette commercial that aired in like 3 countries in Eastern Europe.
Amazing.
But I ended up being SAG eligible afterwards. I got a SAG day rate.
Wow.
It was a nice one day of work, but since it was 3 countries in Eastern Europe, there was no residual checks.
That was it. Which, for those that don't know, that's one of the best parts about a SAG commercial is the residual checks, which is as it plays, you get paid for every time it runs if it's in the US. Not when you go international like Carl. So, Carl, you spent a lot of time in casting rooms. I'm just curious, and this is a big question, but what advice would you give actors who are coming into an audition? What advice? What did you see, like maybe mistakes people made or things? What advice would you give?
Be early. Be prepared, and know and understand why you're there. You especially more in like the non-union realm, or with like younger actors that are just like, yes, and they go out and like, maybe 8-10 auditions in a day because, they want to get going on their career, but they come in and, they don't look at the signs, or they haven't received the copy, or they just don't study the copy, whatever it is. It's just, sometimes there's a lot of just total lack of preparation, or just they know they're there for an audition, but they don't know what the job is. They don't know who the casting director is, and they're very much just like lost children in a way. And it's hard for us because then we're trying to like corral these people or figure out, because it's like you're here, you've got your career, and like I feel for you because the more auditions you go on, the more likely you are to book a job. Mm-hmm. No different for me as a musician sometimes. But it's like, if you're not really prepared or understanding what it is that you're supposed to be doing, you don't have to come in the room just because you're here. You can take some time,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the thing that I just saw over and over again for younger actors, that they just, it's like they were excited to be able to go out on the audition, but they kind of forgot the rest.
They forgot to do the audition.
Or it's like they get to the audition, they literally don't know why they're there.
I was thinking
they're at the address, they're on time, but it's like you're in that lights, they're in the lobby, and they're just like, I don't know why I'm here. That's probably my biggest thing.
Well, I was kind of thinking part of that in my head is, this idea of having having your head over your feet. And what I mean is I feel like kind of with that energy you're talking about, if someone's really busy, they're trying to do a lot, they're kind of, maybe their head is like they're kind of falling forward. So they're just going. And I think with what you're talking about sometimes is like kind of being where you are at the moment and really taking that in, kind of slowing down. And yes, you've got a lot of things on your to-do list, but I feel like being present, and being aware. And, there's a book I love, which is called Pieces Every Step. I've mentioned it before. It's a real short book. It's by Thich Nhat Hanh, and who also, today's theme is monks. But his book is really great because it's one of these things about like finding satisfaction even in washing dishes and being there, because we all are so busy. We all have our to-do lists that, like, while you're washing dishes, let's say you're like thinking about 14,000 other things. And I think there is something interesting, Carl, what you're saying about really sometimes, especially with somewhat newer actors, it's like they're trying to, be they're like the bunny rabbit who's bouncing around so much that they haven't just like settled in. And I think with a lot of times with acting or auditioning, especially when we're running sessions, we feel that energy and it's like, okay, just settle in, be here. All right. Just listen. Like, you're good. Right. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. Just sometimes just like settling people down, or, if it's like my schedule's got like, or my schedule had since I'm hopefully retired, like on a day where maybe I only saw like 80 people, then I could like work with people. And if someone came in and they were frazzled, I could calm them down, or I could give them a chance to go chill. I'm like, dude, I'm going to be here. Why don't you take like 10, 15 and come back in? Like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was just like a straight up cattle call and I'm trying to chew through 400 people in like 10 hours,
we just don't have the time. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Are there any, like, on the other side of the spectrum, somebody who comes in who is very clearly a seasoned actor or something? Like, what are some of the things that you've noticed? Like, do they ask certain questions? Do they come in and they don't ask questions? Like, what are your thoughts on when you see somebody like that?
Questions. Yeah. I mean, like, they're like the tradecraft you see in like a really seasoned actor is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they come in, there's a very calm demeanor about them. They're focused, but they're in the moment. They listen to what you have to say. If they have questions, they ask, and it's usually like, that's a really good question. Like, I'm glad that they asked. And then, there's just, it's kind of amazing in that regard.
Yeah, it's like an energy kind of in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I got called in years ago. It was for Sonnenberg Casting. Fred Warner had started a session for Jody that day, and he was like turning green, just sick. And Jody was like, I'm sending you home. And she called and I was like, are you available now? I was like, yes. She's like, I'm running a callback. Fred is sick. I need you here now. Ran down to the casting lounge. I mean, I think I got there in like 20 minutes from North Hollywood. Like, I probably broke every speeding law or every traffic law imaginable, But I got
the moving spotlight is not liable for any breaking of laws. Okay, no, I have to do that for legal reasons.
But I can't think of the actor's name, but it was the guy that played Dexter's dad on Dexter.
Oh, yeah.
And it was for this car commercial, like Lincoln or something. And like I mean, like that's like, he's like what, a A-list actor or something like that, like he's got a resume, and like just his tradecraft like blew me away. Like, he was so good, and he had like questions. And then what was interesting was like, he was like, guys, I'm really sorry, I don't feel like I'm getting this yet. Is it okay if I come back in like 30 minutes?
Wow.
And the client's there, the director's there, the producer's there, and we're all just like, yes, absolutely, you totally can. And he comes back in 30 minutes later, and it's like he had gone from like great to greater, and it was just like, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they went young. They didn't book him for the job, and I was like,
Carl, I love that because it's also, that's an actor that, you know, knows what they're trying to get, and they understand. It's interesting because we talk about time. The time is not as relevant as the quality, right? And so that director, you know, if the session is a 6-hour session, let's say it's a callback, they're going to be there pretty much the whole time. And so if you want to take a little more time, you know, unless they're like, you got to go now, it's like, you've got that ability. And I think sometimes actors, we kind of give away a little bit of we can give away our power. Actors can give away their power. And so I love him knowing that he wasn't quite there, and taking the time to get there. That's a really cool story. You know, Carl, with what you were saying, I was also thinking one of the things that I think is important that I found, and I don't know how much you found this, is like, actors, it's good to figure out who your fans are and remember that. Because you were saying like people would come in and not have any idea, the casting director, the project, anything like that. And I always really, if you want to do this like professionally, if you want to audition a lot, you become like, I'm not always going to say friends, but you become like work buddies with people. And so you're going to see them a lot. And so there's like a cordialness to that. And I mean, I know it sounds really simple, but I can't tell you how many times I ask people, oh, what, you know, who's the casting director? Who was in the room? And they're like, I don't know. They're just so excited for an audition. And I'm like, well, you're probably going to see Carl a bunch of times. And I'll tell you, if you go in there and be like, hey, Carl, how's your day going? Oh man, it's shitty. I just got to get through this. It's like, oh, okay. You know, I know where Carl's at, but like just the check-in, I think there's something that, you know, that people part of it is also another level where it's like, oh, this casting office keeps bringing me in. Good to know. Maybe that's one you want to stop by when times are slow, or maybe that's one you want to send a little Christmas card to. But like, sometimes I think we don't have actors lose an awareness of that. Yeah. And that's a, you know, a small thing, but it is a big thing I see too with people that have been around it more. Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely, especially kind of as I got, you know, deeper into my career, you know, as a session director, getting to know actors and actresses, like people coming in, and I'd see them, especially ones that were like really pro and like, you know, really good, whether they were always booking or not, or whether they always got booked on whatever the job was that I was working. But it's just like, you know, they were like pro, they were easy to work with. They hit a home run every time. You know, those were the people who are just like, hey, like I'd see them on the schedule. I'd remember them. I'd be like, I know this person's going to be good. Yeah. I'm excited to see them.
Yeah.
Whether they remember my name from anybody else in the crowd didn't really matter. It was just like, I know this person's really good. Yeah. They're always nice, on time, prepared. They always did great.
Would you ever do this, Carl? Like stand in front of like a group and say like, who knows my name? And if they didn't know it, just like send them home. Because I would do that. I'd be like, who doesn't know my name? Go home.
I haven't go home. I wouldn't do that.
So Carl, what about in the audition room? When you've been in there with like directors and the agency, any advice for actors when they're coming in for like a callback? You know, do you want them to do the exact same thing they did last time? Should they change it up? You know, what's the energy like? Sometimes good, sometimes bad. What about being in a callback?
Oh man, callbacks are so weird. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never really got very comfortable running camera in callbacks because you never really knew, you know, there were maybe some directors that you could start to get to know. And then like, okay, well, there's a little bit of rapport here. This guy's kind of funny. Maybe I can kind of say something, but most of the time it's just like this tension in the room. And and the actors, usually they can sense that when they come in. And if they're already a little on edge when they come in, like that tension kind of just, you know, it's like a punch in the face for them. It's just kind of like, again, you know, try to stay in the moment, stay calm, at least on the first take, you know, do what you did that got you here. Mm-hmm. And then after that, listen.
Yeah.
Because the director probably is going to throw a curveball at you and you gotta roll with it. They're going to have you try different stuff, but I'd say coming in and doing something different from what you did to get you there may help you, but may not. And sometimes it's just different anyway once the director shows up, because the director's like, okay, well, that was great, but I'm not really interested in any of that. We're going to do this.
That's true. That happens. Yeah. You got to be able to roll with it, Carl. And I was thinking about that with what you just said. I always think it's great for actors to come in like with their strong world, their strong vision, their strong choice, but then be ready to just like throw it away. And they're like, great. Now you're not the older brother. You're the younger brother who's got no confidence. And you're like, great, let's do this. You know,
love it.
Rewind. You love it. Love that idea. You know, and so you have to completely rewire everything, just like you're saying. And here's the thing. I know actors can be pissed. Like, why didn't they tell us? Sometimes they don't know. Like, we are getting updated information minute to minute because pieces are moving, things are changing. And I try to remind actors that when I'm in the room and like, well, I just read the script out there and it said this. And I'm like, no, I am telling you the most current information. That script is from yesterday, and in 24 hours, it has changed. Listen to what I'm saying, because this is what's most current. This is coming right from the casting director who's talked to the director or the producer or whatever, you know? And so I think that is, but my point is that flexibility to be able to say, okay, great. Yeah, let's just switch up. I think that happens a lot. I mean, in all of entertainment, but especially in commercials because they move so quick.
Yeah. You know, or, you get someone that, like, they say someone auditions for mother, right? Aspiring, kind of aspirational, you know, younger mom type character. They audition for that. They get called back for the fun auntie role instead. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, okay, well, they think you can do it. So, you know, come in and roll with it. It's not what you auditioned with. So now you got to kind of already reinvent yourself before you come in the room, because you're definitely not doing what got you here. But, you know, and that happens all the time too. You see it when people get callbacks for roles that they didn't even audition for because they think this person would do better, you know, in role B, C.
Yeah. And most of the time that means they like you. That's just, they have a different vision for that role. Or, you know, maybe that role's already cast, let's say by a celebrity or something, you know, so, you know, like, or they were working on a deal. And so, yeah, but they want to see what you can do with, I think that's a great point of advice. How do you feel, Carl? Just one thing about with the pace of commercial casting.
I liked it, you know?
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah.
It's kind of hit it and quit it, you know, get in, get out. It's fast. I mean, at least, you know, I think probably an average day for me, for the most part, was about 150 people a day. So it's like, I can't really give you 10 minutes to, you know, do take after take after take after take. It's just hit it and quit it. And you see a lot of people, and, you know, it's fast. It has to be, because commercials aren't 5 minutes long. They're 15, 30, 45 minute tops. And you don't really see minute commercials anymore.
No, it's true.
Have you ever run a session, like a music session, like where they're playing a bass or anything, like, and how does that work? Like judging them and like kind
of man. Yeah, I've been hired to do musician or music type castings.
Yeah.
Where they're like, hey, look, like, we need you to help us determine if these people can actually sing.
Funny.
Yeah. And that was a trip, because then I'm sitting there, I'm really listening. Yeah. And so what they had me do was they had these people, like, it was like 4 people in a car, some car commercial where people went on like a road trip to Vegas. I couldn't tell you what the job was at this point. It was probably 10 years ago. But what I did is I had everyone sing in unison, and then I would push in and I would point, and I'd be like, and that was your cue to take a solo. Mm-hmm. And then you knew who the loud breathers were that were just kind of breathing along in key, or who was actually like really like belting it out, going for it. And then, because they wanted people who could really sing. So that was a fun one.
Did someone teach you that, or did you just kind of one day go, here we go, like everybody's singing, like you just kind of troubleshooted from there?
No, the casting director was very clear in terms of what he wanted and how he wanted to do it. He was like, I booked you for this reason. So this is how I want to do it, so that we can really, determine who like the strongest singers are.
Gotcha.
So we can try to get them on this job.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Somewhere over the rainbow. That was Corbin breathing. That was me singing, which was on key and on pitch. I know I'm a good singer. Has that commercial been cast yet? Okay. Great. No, I love that when your two talents are kind of cross over, Corbin. So great question. When they feed in like that, I think that's always really cool. I remember I got to do a commercial where I was a basketball coach and I was improvising and it was really funny, and I got to work with kids, and it was kind of like a bunch of combinations of all these things I just loved. And I was like, I could do this like every single day. It was so much fun. I want to jump over, Carl, to being a musician and how that came into your life, since we were touching on it, man. I think that's really interesting. How long have you been like into music and doing it, and that being one of your careers and passions?
I think my parents always were playing like the greatest hits of like, the 50s and 60s, around the house when I was a kid. I mean, I loved like, the Motown stuff, Elvis, early Beatles. But, I think what grabbed me was the first time I heard Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. Like, that's when I was like, I want to do that for the rest of my life. Like I heard it so easy, and I just was like, and that record just turned 35 years old yesterday, I think.
Wow.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. As far as its release date goes.
Yeah.
And that's also kind of when I realized that I heard music differently from my friends and from my family. I sat there and I just, I put the headphones on and, hearing one guitar doing one thing and one guitar doing something completely different. And then, in each ear, and then like the bass guitar doing something else. It was like this conversation, this hard rock, like almost symphony happening in my ears. And I loved it. And I went for it after that, I mean, I think I played like cello in like the 4th grade orchestra, and then it wasn't cool enough. And then like, hey, we want people who want to play drums. And I was like, sign me up. I get to beat on things. This is great. And then I got like my first drum set. I think my parents loaned me some money to get a drum set when I was like 12. And then I like mowed lawns and shoveled driveways to pay them back. And then I eventually got my hands on a guitar, and then it was really off to the races.
Nice.
Notes, scales, riffs. Like now I can communicate these ideas to my 14 and 15-year-old friends. Like, hey, can we try this? And someone was like, okay, Carl, this is a G chord. This is a D chord. Like,
whoa.
Oh my God. Like, mind explodes. And I just been after it ever since, somehow, some way. I think my first ever paying gig as a musician was probably like 20 years ago. It's like, okay, I'm a professional now. I got like $20 and a 6-pack of beer. Like, I got paid.
That's all you need.
Yeah. You can pay me in food, just, like,
yeah. That's good. Do you recommend people who want to be musicians to learn multiple instruments, or do you think it's better, like, if you were to go back, would you want to just hone in on just bass or just guitar or something?
I think, there are some people that like you hear them play and it's like, okay, you've definitely logged more than 1,000 hours on your instrument. Like, like there's just some people that you hear them play guitar and it's just like there's this level there that's happening, this level of talent that, you just have to sit back and listen and watch and just appreciate it. It's like that person was like a born guitar player. They might have played something else beforehand, piano, drums, whatever, flute. But it's like, man, when they sit down and they play that guitar, it's, like unreal. you know, like a guy like James Hetfield or Slash, you know, those guys are guitar players. Like,
oh my gosh, Carl, I got to jump in. I just saw, if people should look this up, the video, this was crazy, where Slash is going crazy on stage with Michael Jackson. Have you seen this? And Michael Jackson is, yeah. Okay, Carl, shake his head. Corbin, have you seen this?
I don't think so, no.
I just saw it. It was like vintage footage, kind of. Slash is going to town. Michael Jackson is like dancing and like pointing at him, like go. And then Michael's like, okay, like it's time for him to stop. So he kind of tries to, Slash keeps going. Michael Jackson's security tries to grab him. Slash is like kicking them away and still going to town. And then Michael's getting like pissed because he will not stop. He's so in it. You know what I mean? Oh my God. If you look at the video, do you know what I'm talking about, Carl? I mean, you probably know more than me.
VMAs, like,
oh my God.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that song that Slash had done with Michael Jackson. I don't remember what it's called. And yeah, they performed it together at the VMAs. And yeah, Slash was just so lost in the moment. And yeah, just going for it. Just like, and it's like, you know, but I mean, someone had probably told him, yeah, go crazy, you know?
Yep.
And yeah, you just hear Michael going, Slash, stop, you know? Like one of those times where it's like you hear Michael Jackson kind of lose his cool over the mic, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think what was interesting with, you know, you said a phrase which I really liked, which like you heard things differently, Carl, when you were listening to like the Guns N' Roses. And I was thinking about that with like actors and artists, how they maybe feel things differently or see things differently or experience it differently or hear it differently. And I think that's interesting because it also ties in with what we're talking about here, which is like, you know, there's a book called Flow, but this idea of flow and what is the thing that you're in? I'm sure you get this way when you're performing or practicing or playing, where you're just like in the flow of it and it's just like nothing else exists. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of, I mean, obviously Slash kicking at the security guards, he knew people were happening and things were happening around him, but he was like in the flow. And I just, to me, that's one of like my favorite feelings, whether I get it on set or teaching or with basketball, you know, to try to find that. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that way when you're performing or practicing, you know, working on your music?
Yeah. I mean, I can lose hours.
Yeah.
When I'm learning music. Say I need to learn, like I actually have to learn some music later today. But like when you really get into like learning something that's like kind of a complicated piece of music, like there's a lot of riffs and scales and stuff like that you got to really kind of, you know, listen to over and over and fumble around the fretboard till you find the right notes, because sometimes when it's a bunch of like notes in a riff all flying around, you miss a couple, you know? Mm-hmm. And so you're in there just like you're going for it, trying to figure it out. And yeah, dude, I can lose hours that way.
When you're approaching like something like that, you have to work on that's going to be difficult. I was just thinking about, for me, sometimes I'm also like not really looking forward to it, even though once I get into it, I love it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I've had that happen. Yeah.
Sometimes.
And I hope that I'm kind of past that point in my career now, but there were times where it's like, you know, I'd be taking these gigs because they paid well enough, but the music was awful. You know, just like terrible lyric writing. Singing was okay, but like listening to it, like just, it's like not just the songs aren't good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm sitting there listening to it and I'm trying to learn how to play it. I'm just like, oh, yeah, I don't.
Yeah. I think on the learning curve though, Carl, that's everything. I mean, that's acting where you're on a set and you're like, oh God, there's a lot of problems happening here, or, you know, but and I think with music, you know, you go through those phases and you're trying to kind of level up, but I definitely think that, you know,
I mean, it's like when you're given like great material to learn, it's easy.
Yeah.
You know, or it's like a case where it's like, oh, I've been listening to these songs since I was like 15. And they just boom, you learn it so quick because it's like been around it for so long.
Carl, I know you've done some touring. What are like the highs and lows of that for people that maybe are curious or have never done it, or, you know? He's got a big smile for those listening. Those watching.
I love being on tour, man.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun, man. It's like you're on vacation every day, and then you get to play rock and roll music.
Yeah.
And you get like a paycheck for it, and you get like, you know, especially in Europe, really good catering, and you get to see new places. I mean, I've done, I started out like any other musician, like doing the van tour, like 4 dudes, maybe showering every couple of days, like using the shower in the box, the baby wipes to like, clean what
shower
needs
in a
to be
box.
cleaned.
That's the new title of this episode, shower in a box.
Waking up in Walmart parking lots, waking up in truck stop parking lots.
Yeah.
Like, hey, does this club have a shower? Like, yeah, we do, but it's kind of dirty. That's great. I'll take it. Don't slip on the mold, but at least I'm getting a shower today. But when you start to get like on the cool stuff where it's like, you're making decent money and you get to fly to Europe and play 5-6 nights a week in Europe for like 7 weeks and stay in nice hotels, and you get like really good catering, and it's like at that point you got like the Ziploc bags with you, and you make your sandwiches and catering and you take them back to the hotel. Like, dude, I mean, the food over there is just like so fresh, and you get to try and see new things. I mean, the thing about being on tour is like, it's fun. You get to do what you love. I mean, there are exceptions. Yeah. If it's like a tour where like, the crowds aren't showing up or the money's not great, or, you realize that you don't get along with one or more people in the van with you, then it gets hard. But, you get to live in a van, you get to go see places, you get to wake up in a new city every day, you get to try new things, new coffees, new beers. Yeah. Different kinds of food. Like you don't have to live on McDonald's or Starbucks. You can take your per diem money and go like, what's this little Turkish coffee shop over here in Berlin? I'm going to go in there. But you're tired, but wired. I mean, you're never really 100%. Yeah. You kind of exist in that 60 to 70% range, especially as the tour, kind of gets like on a 7-week tour, like when your feet are starting to hurt every day and stuff like that. But it's like, you still get on stage, the adrenaline kicks in and it's like, let's do this. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, it's not an easy living by any means. You're never fully rested. There are moments where you're homesick, especially if you've got like a girlfriend, fiance, wife at home that you miss, or if you're married with kids, you miss your kids. You definitely will. I've seen it. And then there's just days where it's like, yeah, there's just not time for a shower today. It is what it is.
This is how it's going to be today.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember a tour not that long ago where we drove 17 hours in one night from Reno, Nevada to Denver, Colorado. We walked off stage covered in sweat and walked on stage in Denver in the same socks, underwear, pants, and shirts that we had all been wearing in Reno the night before.
Nice.
Wow. But
gross,
you made it.
But nice.
But you made it.
And we killed it,
Yeah. Where's your...
You have to be easygoing on the road. You just roll with the punches.
Just go
listen. Don't talk. Don't over talk. Don't complain unless it's like a really, 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 really valid point. No one wants to be in the van for hours on end with someone who just won't shut up.
Yeah. Sure. Where's your favorite place favorite venue to play at?
Man. I mean, I gotta throw props to the 930 Club in Washington, D.C. Like as a kid growing up in D.C., like that was like one of like the pinnacles. Like, fuck, we get to play the 930 Club, and it's like just when I finally got to play there, it was one of the most amazing experiences. Like from just the crew, like the local guys that work there, like, oh, we'll get your amp up on the stage. Don't worry about it. Like I can do it. They're like, no, man, we got this. And then like 3 guys just lift my entire rig up. And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. This is what it's like. Okay. And, it sounded so good on that stage. And it always, as like a fan, as a kid going to that club, going to see shows there, like, oh my God, I'm on that stage where like I've seen my heroes play, like that was a really cool moment for me. So the 930 Club is always going to be number one for me because I got to do that. After that, like SO36 in Berlin is probably one of my favorite places in Europe. It's like in Kreuzberg, like kind of like an older part of Berlin. And God, that venue was just amazing, but it also was a really magical night that night. Like it was a great show, it was a sold out show. Like, you know, the crowd sang every word back, every single song louder than the PA. That was rad. Yeah. Like just especially because it had been such a long day getting across Germany on a holiday weekend in Europe. And there was this place in Amsterdam I played one time that, for the life of me, I can't think of what it's called. It was this teeny little place. Played there. It was my first European tour in 2013. The place held about 170 people, and I think that's generous. Yeah. I think realistically it only held 100, but they packed 170 people in there. And it was this tight, tiny little stage. It's a really cool venue, like great sound system. And it was attached to like a hostel that had like a world-class chef and a world-class kitchen. So it's like all you had to do was just walk out the front door, walk in the front door of the hostel. Like the green rooms up on the third floor. They gave us free rooms that we didn't get to use. But the food was like amazing. It was like a 4-star restaurant, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And that was just one of those things. And that was kind of one of those like little kind of eye-opening moments for me as like, you know, on my first time playing in Europe, you know, playing this venue. And they, you know, it's those kind of little things that, you know, like I would play Amsterdam again in a heartbeat. You know, I loved like being in that city the first time, walking around it. I loved how that crowd treated the band that I was in then. So it's kind of like, well, this will happen again, you know? Of course. It'll be a completely different band. I mean, every time I've gone on a European tour, it's been with a different band. Mm-hmm. But, you know, getting to see some of those cities and walk around them and stuff like that, I think that's what I enjoy the most. And so I've given you the weirdest answer possible.
No, those are great. No. Love it.
Those are great. And I love that you said it was like a magical night in Berlin. There's the movie, one of the movies I really love is Midnight in Paris with Owen Wilson. And he has like, you know, a magical night in Paris. And I think it's so cool. I had a night different than this, but like when I got to go to Reykjavik, Iceland, and I just went for a walk at night by myself, and like all this really cool stuff happened. I snuck into an opera. I met a bunch of people. I was like walking around. It started snowing, you know, so it was like this gorgeous, like just like light snowfall. And like I was up all night. And I think those things happen when you're kind of like experiencing new places, new things, new worlds, and you're open to, you know, saying yes to it. I also think you hit something, Carl, that I really appreciate, which is sometimes you're in a place where you've got other people lifting your stuff onto the set, which is wonderful. And you're like, hey, they're bringing me a meal. They're doing this. And then you also have experiences where you're like, I got to lift it myself. I got to go find my own food. And I think that like, it's not gratitude, it's not humility, but it's like a triangle of a bunch of different things where I think hopefully we're open to experiencing both, you know, and understanding like, great, like this is lovely and I'm appreciating this and I'm grateful for this. But I'm also understanding, you know, sometimes that doesn't always happen. You know what I mean? It's kind of an interesting thing.
I've been doing this so long as a musician, but I'm used to pushing my own cases and loading my own gear. I appreciate it when I'm in a situation where we have someone who is there hired specifically to do that for us. Mm-hmm. But then there's also that part of me that's like, I'm not ready to let go yet.
Yeah.
Like I've got a guy that I started playing with last year, and you know, the guy was in a big band in the late 90s, early 2000s. They had a lot of hit songs. And when I go out and I play with him, like, you know, we have a guitar tech, and he does a lot for the band as far as like getting gear set up, making sure stuff works. And so we were just in Chicago this past weekend, And the local guys were like, why are you sitting up your own gear? Like, you got a guy right over there. I was like, I know, but he's busy enough.
Mm.
And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm just, the crowd doesn't know that I'm in the band. They might think I'm a tech. Like, I'm going to be back here in a totally different shirt in like 20 minutes anyway. Glasses off. It's like, Clark Kent turning into Superman. I don't know. Like, he's got those, he's got the two guitar players he's got to take care of. Like, I don't want to add to his workload. Like, this is my rig is easy.
But Carl, you've always in a good way been easy, because when I text you, be like, hey, I need help on this casting session, you're like, sure, man, I'll be there. Like, and I think it's kind of neat. I feel like musicians, it's a generalization, but a lot of musicians have a bit of that, like, I know it's like a laid back, easy energy. Not all of them. I know that's not true, but there's something about that forces you to go with the flow. And I don't know if it's spending time jamming, and just like, I don't know, but there's something that's, I feel that from you, Carl. And I definitely, when we had Ellington on, I felt it from him. You know what I'm saying, Corbin? There's something about like the DNA in there that is pretty cool. Carl, we got to get to our favorite part of the show. One of our favorite parts, which is your best bad acting. The way Carl laughed, I could tell he's listened to an episode of the show, because he knows what's coming. Good on you, Carl. Good on you.
I was watching Sanford, and I was laughing pretty good.
Yeah, he had a good one.
Well, we've got you one that's very relevant. Corbin's going to send it to you in the chat. And if you remember, this is a movie that's a classic, and it deals with musicians. And the idea is just to have fun with it. Do you know what this is from, Carl?
No.
This is from Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap. So we went back to an old Christopher Guest movie. If people haven't seen This Is Spinal Tap or Best in Show, you've got to go check those movies out. Very, very funny.
I love Spinal Tap, man.
Oh my gosh. We were looking at, the obvious quote was the one that he goes to 11, but we're like, we wanted to find something a little bit different. Yeah, it was too obvious. And this actually isn't even said by the musician, so we changed it up on you a little bit, Carl, to see your acting range. But the point with this is just have fun with this. If you want to do anything fun with it, we might give you a redirect, but just have fun. There's no pressure to perform whatever,
Right. Yeah. Let me see this here. I mean, I'm just, now I'm thinking of like things I've heard of, maybe after we do this, if we still have a little time, I'll share you some things that I've heard secondhand with regard to, like, professional musicians who were like, yeah, Spinal Tap's not funny to me anymore.
Oh no. Oh yes. No, this is better.
All right, let's see here. All right, let's try it.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
All right, we are rolling whenever you're ready.
So the review you had on Shark Sandwich, which was merely a 2-word review, just said shit sandwich.
I like it. It's really good. That was really good. Very natural, Carl. I like it.
That was really natural. He's given the direction of throw it away a lot. Just keep it natural. Don't do too much with it.
That's my favorite direction to give actors and actresses.
Exactly.
Casual, man.
Cash, man. Corbin, do you have a redirect for him?
I do. I want to see you in like, you're that pampered musician. You're just like walking through, and you're just got like, you got everything covered for you. You got all your food, the gear, and you expect it. I want that guy.
Oh, okay. All right.
A little sass.
Yo, hey, that review you had on the Shark Sandwich, which was merely a 2-word review, just said shit sandwich.
It's so good.
That's great. Okay, Carl, I don't know. Is there like a DC accent at all or not?
Not really.
Okay, there's not. Okay, then
I've always considered myself a bit of a Southern boy, so
no. Here's what I do.
Some drawl in there.
No. I want you to give it your best European accent. Give it some sort of, since you've toured Europe. It can be a generic European accent, or it can be something specific. Let's do this. This is a European reviewer.
All right. For some reason, all I can think of now is Spinal Tap. I just have this. I'm really trying not to do that one.
Do it. Do it. You can
go
do it
for
if you
it. Yeah,
want.
take a big
Do
swing.
it. Do it.
I'm terrible at accents, so go for it.
Do it. Do it.
The review you had on Shark Sandwich.
Yes.
Actually, look, I'm slipping into Manhattan almost.
No, that was great. No, I loved it. Yeah, it was Manhattan, but it was good.
The review you had on Shark Sandwich, which was merely just a 2-word review, just said shit sandwich.
I really like this character. It's good.
I like it too. I don't think it's Spinal Tap, Carl, but it's something. It's something, which I like. No, I like it.
I think it's kind of like, I think it's like one of those like little like weird kind of like Manhattan-y sub accents that you kind of get sometimes from folks. I think that's what I kind of just pulled out.
Yeah,
I love it. That's our first sub accent. I've never even had. I love it, Carl. It was so good. It was so good, man. Well, Carl, this is so great, man. We really appreciate you being here. This has been awesome, and we've been buddies for a long time, and I'm really it brings joy to see you and talk with you and talk shop, and I really appreciate you and all you've done in your journey, man. You've always been a good guy, a good dude, which is wonderful to see, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, thanks, fellas.
Beautiful.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Moving Spotlight podcast. I figured it out. The beer is Cluster Andex. That's the name of the beer. Yeah, Cluster Andex. And also, Corbin, we're hip with it. We got a TikTok.
We got a TikTok. We're so cool now.
And we've got videos up there, folks. They're entertaining. They're fun. You may learn something. So check us out on TikTok at The Moving Spotlight, all one word. There's some funny stuff on there, Corbin.
Yeah, we're pretty funny. I don't know if anybody knows that, but we're pretty funny.
We do a little bit of comedy, and there's some heartfelt, dramatic stuff on there too. So
we do a little bit of comedy.
Yeah, we're like most actors. We want to do everything. All right. So thanks again for listening. We appreciate you sticking around, and on to the next one. Thank you for listening to the
Moving Spotlight Podcast.